and I want to welcome you all to this meeting today. It was pretty well timed. We set the meeting before the fires over the last weekend, and suddenly it seemed like all of a sudden, well, good timing on this. People are going to be thinking about this. I have a funny way myself of forgetting about the dangers until something actually happens, and lacking imagination until the reality hits. So welcome, everybody. I want to thank first Lisa Boyle, one of our members, reached out to me and said, I have this contact at the city. Let's do this. Let's do a Zoom presentation on this. And that is why we are doing this. Resilient Palisades is a local response to the climate crisis and the ecological crisis. And part of our response needs to be thinking about how we're going to respond to the change that's coming. Part of it is trying to change the way that we live to reduce the extremity of the change that's coming. Everything that we do is organic in the sense that all of our projects have arisen out of the interest of our community. So when we invited Jackie to come and speak with us today, my thought was, well, could this be another initiative that we as Resilient Palisades could work on? And the only way that that will happen is if people from the community step forward and say, I'd like to work on a project with Resilient Palisades where we can make this a community-wide thing. We can take things from here, this to the community. So I want to invite you, and I'll put my email address in the chat. If you want to do more than just find out about what you can do at home for yourself, which we all need to do, if you want to get involved with Resilient Palisades and think about how we can take this wider to the community, please be in touch with me, and we can see if we can form a group that can get that going. So with that said, I would like to give a warm welcome to Jackie Koci Tamayo. She is the Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Los Angeles. And the talk she's going to give today is on emergency preparedness, the Emergency Management Department, and the Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood program. And our plan was that she would talk, the presentation would be about 40 minutes, and then we will have time for Q&A. And my suggestion is that if you have questions as she's talking, that you put them in the chat, and we will, Ryan is going to help field those questions when the time comes. So welcome, Jackie, and I'll hand over to you.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ingrid and Ryan, for inviting me, and Casey, thank you for sharing the information. I feel that Palisades is my second home because before I worked in emergency management department, I actually worked for the Department of Recreation and Parks, and I was the senior recreation coordinator at Rustic Canyon for 7 years, and prior to that at Palisades Recreation Center for 3. So that's about 10 years of my life working over 40 hours per week there. And it's a beautiful community. It's you guys are very kind, very united, and it's still strong. So I always love coming to the Palisades or speaking to people from the Palisades because it feels like I'm still speaking to my neighbors in the hillside. So with that, the city of Los Angeles, and just with a quick raise of hands, if I could see, is how many of you ever heard of the Emergency Management Department, the city's Emergency Management Department? How many of you have heard of CERT? More of CERT, yes. Okay. And then how many of you have heard of the word that's been throwing around lately, public safety? Okay. So the new term that's been being coined a lot lately is the word public safety and resiliency, which is very important now, especially with a lot of things that are happening, including like the COVID-19 response. So with that said, the Emergency Management Department, who are we? What do? We plan and prepare all the city departments, residents, and businesses for emergency. How do we do this? We do a lot of front-facing efforts in what we call the emergency preparedness cycle, which is we prepare. So we make sure that people understand about preparedness. How do we prepare ourselves, our family, our pets, our neighborhoods? The city on their end, we prepare with mitigation factors of understanding our area, our city, what we do, making plans that are correlation with an all hazards approach, meaning what do we do when we have to respond to this room in the photo that you see here? When we as emergency managers, we as police, we as a fire have to respond and start coordinating efforts and how to get resources for a major disaster to the city of LA. What plans do we have in place? What disaster plans do we have in place? And these are everything from earthquake to tsunami to wildfire to pandemic, even for civil unrest. We also do the response, and the response is here is our emergency operations center. So right now, currently for COVID-19, we are activated in a level 1 for the response. We've been activated for over a year now, and we're continuing. So a lot of the policies and decisions that are made in the senior level with like the mayor and the mayor's office, a lot of the things that we have to do comes out of this office. So, and we help with that response effort. Same with wildfires. Same with if the 8.0 earthquake hits, this is where we're going to come to go ahead and do the response. We also aid in the recovery area. So after any major emergency, and in recent times, we're going to talk about the 2019 fires that actually happened, Palisades, the Getty fire, and the Saddle Ridge. We do short-term recovery immediately through this office, through the Emergency Operations Center. And this is where you could come in, and it's not immediately the shelters, but where you could come and get more information on who do I contact in building and safety for damage assessment, or I lost everything, I need a new driver's license. We have DMV that comes out and helps us with that. So we are a local resource center to get those who are experiencing any type of loss from the event to get those resources and start bringing back to what a normal can be, or close to normal we can be. So for that is a very small pie. What my division does, and we do when we're not in response, is preparedness and coming out to the communities and explaining why it's so important to be prepared for emergencies. So the emergency management department is the glue between fire and police. We are part of the public safety trifecta that the city of LA deems. So we have, it's like a triangle, right? We have fire, we have police, and then we have EMD, Emergency Management Department, and we bring it all together. With that, and knowing about climate change and weather, and experiencing what has been happening similarly with the last 5 years, we understand that when we do our research about climate change, it affects not only our weather, but it also affects our ocean levels. It affects if we were near rivers or highly sited rivers like in the Northern California, things like that will be effective. And what major disasters happen in and around Los Angeles, and especially in the Palisades area? Well, unfortunately, we saw the fire that recently happened, right? So wildfires is very prone to the Palisades. And because of those wildfires, we are prone to landslides, mudslides, debris flows, possible floods in certain sections. Earthquake, even though part of the neighborhoods in the Palisades are sitting on bedrock, it doesn't mean that the earthquakes will not affect, because if the 8.0 earthquake happens and you have, let's say the epicenter was several miles away. However, it affected certain of your ingress and egress, because we know we only have a few, which is Sunset and Chautauqua and Entrada. And if the supply chain stops or there was major damages in those areas, how does the Palisades community sustain itself during that earthquake, right? An earthquake creates more movement and more changing of geology changes within our city. And last, which we don't really have to worry about, but don't worry, if this ever happens, we actually have a plan, is tsunamis. And why does the tsunamis affect the Palisades area? Because of Will Rogers State Beach, of course, but also the evacuation zone. If you've ever seen the signs, the tsunami signs coming up, you'll see it's going up Chautauqua, going up to higher ground. So those are a few basic ones. The one that is now pretty prominent, and not a lot of people understand this because it's relatively new, and there is a correlation because of changes into our climate, is adverse weather. Adverse weather means it's either getting extremely hot or extremely cold. And we always laugh in Los Angeles that we don't really have seasons, right? Because we have sunshine and amazing temperatures throughout the years. But now we're noticing throughout the years that our temperatures are changing. Downtown LA has been experiencing temperatures up to 111 degrees, which is record highs for us. And I could say probably the same for the beaches and inland. I live in West Los Angeles. I'm not too far from you. And I can tell you, I've been living in my neighborhood for over, oh my gosh, I'm going to date myself, for about 39 years. Yes, I was born in the neighborhood. And the way we experience summers and how we experience winters now is extremely different. A lot of our, you could tell, a lot of our buildings were built without air conditioning because of the natural breeze and movement. And now that has been changing. So when we respond to adverse weather, we are actually putting up shelters for those who are unhoused, or for those who do not have air conditioning in the summer months and need to cool down during the day. And they could come in, and this is pre-COVID, we're changing it a little bit for COVID, and actually experience cooling centers. So they can refresh themselves, they can have water, be in air conditioning, and then there's portable stations. Vice versa, when it's winter and they need a place to stay in the evenings or just to warm up before they go to bed, these areas are available to them for that need. And we do have plans and annexes that now work with that, which is brand new to our system. Los Angeles, a little bit of information here. 4 million residents. It's actually now 4.5 million residents. And while we were active prior to COVID and any given day, so let's just say March 14th, which was the last normal Friday we've had of 2020, we could have about approximately 6 million people during the day. We're 471 square miles, and we are just a little under 10,000 police officers and just a little bit above 3,000 firefighters. With that, emergency managers, who also are your first responders, there is only 22 for the whole entire city. So what does that mean? Oops, sorry. We have to prepare. And how do we prepare? We have to prepare not only ourselves individually with the Go Kit, which we'll go into a little bit later, but at home, at work, at cars, in our neighborhood. So I'm very excited to say the Palisades community has been extremely active in preparing their neighborhoods with Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood, which is the city's initiative for our disaster preparedness, and we'll speak more about that. But the Highland Recreation area, the whole entire area is Ryland Ready, which we love to call Ryland Ready. There are parts of the Russet Canyon area near Greenwood that is Ryland Ready, and on Latimer. So thank you, Palisades, for being so active and being so resilient towards preparedness for the next thing, possible thing. But what do? We make a kit. We have to create these communications plans and create an evacuation plan. And Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood will help you with this. So on the city level, we work with LAFD, city plans, and Los Angeles Police Department to create these evacuation plans for you. The main question they always ask, and feel free to ask Chief Hogan his answer for this, because he's an amazing resource, but it's also a very unpopular answer that we have is, what are the evacuation plans for wildfires? Because that's what we're targeted with. And we don't have exact plans. We have ideas and like how we were going to do it. But the problem with wildfires is the characteristic of the wildfire is so different. They take on each personality. So you might have had several wildfires, and unfortunately we've had many brush fires and we've had some close experiences. But each of them, even though they might have been in the same range, they are diverse because of weather, because of wind, because of I'm drawing blank, vegetation, and the steepness of the area. So the steepness of the hill, or the steepness, or if it's a flatbed, or it's multiple. So that's the problem with wildfires. So, but we do have plans in place, and our incident commanders do review the areas and the characteristics before making the evacuation routes. So you're in hands with very skilled professionals, and LAFD, they're amazing when it comes to that. Oh, and in time of evacuation, LAFD and EMD will create the plans, but LAPD will assist you with the evacuation orders. This can be found on our website at Ready LA. I'm sorry? Is there a question? Oh, okay. This information could be found on our website, and I'm going to put it on the chat at readyla.org. And this is the first thing we want to do. And we want to make sure we have our disaster kits ready and our go bags. We want to make sure we have water for ourselves. And when we do a go bag, this is the thing. This is when you do not have time to stay and prep. You have to grab the necessities and leave. And this is usually in a more likely in a wildfire situation that is happening right behind your backyard. So your backpack should be filled with certain items, which should be your extra medication, documents, battery, a flashlight, a cell phone charger or backup battery. The sleeping bags could be in your family kit, but not necessarily a go kit. And some basic toiletries. And your go kit you want to do for at least 3 days. It is pretty heavy, the go kit itself. Now, when we're doing our disaster supplies for a family or for sheltering in place scenarios, that is, if you get a notification that we're staying put, do not leave your area, you want to have supplies for a minimum of 14 days. You do. The reason why, it's better to have more than not enough. Before, people were throwing around 72 hours, which is equivalent to 3 days. We're not recommending that as much anymore. We are recommending the 14-day rule. And this also includes your babies, so any children and infants, and your pets. So for example, it's 1 gallon per day per pet or per person for those 7 to 14 days. Again, if you live in an apartment or a small area, base it on your ratio and how you could store it. There's different ways. And again, on the website, we have new information on how to do that. One of the things that you want to do, why it's so important to have the disaster supplies, and now we're going to talk about communication plan, is because you don't want to be caught off guard at any time. And these supplies could be used for any type of activation. It could be even a power outage. People don't understand why power outages could be so devastating. But if you were in a family with somebody who's dependent on electricity for being fed or being given oxygen, or just for life situations, ventilators, etc., electricity is very important. So make sure you have your plan in place and your supplies for people with access and functional needs. And when we talk about access and functional needs, we're also talking about people who may not speak English as their first language. It could be their second language too. So making sure that they're also prepared. If you have nannies or people who work in your house, also make sure they have supplies or share the information with them. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to spend $500-600 on a backpack. You can find a lot of your supplies on Amazon and your local stores. Some of my items have come from a dollar store also. So it can be cost effective. A lot of things you want to think about, thinking and going back to why we want to be resilient and saving. A lot of solar power items are out there too. So feel free. So solar power generators, solar power battery packs, a lot of your crank radios are solar power. So that could help with diminishing the footprint if needed. Your communications plan, this is very important. Make sure you have a emergency plan and knowing where you spend most of your time with. So know your point of contact if something happens. So for example, if you have children in school, make sure you know who your point of contact at the school is. Always decide on an out of area contact. It's funny, but when the lines are down, you will not be able to call anybody within the LA City or LA County area, and probably not even Orange County or Riverside. So we're saying go out of state to someone and have them to be your in case of emergency, or what we call, or for short, you could put is ICE on your phone. Those are the people who will be your family's point of contact if they're in need to communicate and you don't have any communication within there. Keep an important copy of the important phone numbers. If you're just like me, I can remember my home number when I was 8 years old, but I can't remember half the phone numbers on my cell phone anymore. We're so dependent on our cell phones and registering all of that in our digital phone books that maybe you lose power, your cell phone shuts down or it breaks during an emergency. Make sure you have a handwritten copy or a printed out copy of your reporting contacts. And this may include doctor, hospital, school, anybody who is important for you. And which is fascinating and is very true, text messages are most likely to work during the emergency. And this includes apps like Signal and WhatsApp. During 2017, I was in Mexico City for their major earthquake that happened. It was a 7.1 earthquake. It was actually one of the largest I've ever been in, and all the systems were down. The one thing that actually only worked was at Facebook Messenger and the WhatsApp. Those two, because it was internet based and we were able to get communication, was the only way we were able to contact with those within my immediate family and with others who were worried about us. And that system went back up. Luckily, cell phone towers and everything went back within a few hours. But in the immediate response, it was text messaging, Messenger, and the WhatsApp app. So basic communication tips that we love to share with you. We are a social media generation, but we still use traditional media to share information at all times. But LAFD Alerts is an excellent source if you have not signed up yet to get information on anything that's happening with LA City. So our emergency management department, we work in conjunction with LAFD, but we're the ones who send you your wireless emergency alerts through Notify LA. So if you sign up for Notify LA, we send you the emergency alerts. There's two differences, and many people ask, what's the difference between a wireless emergency alert, a large one, and then just a regular emergency alert? One of them is you do not sign up for because it's a catastrophic event that everybody needs the information for, right? So earthquake, wildfire, tsunami, etc. The emergency alert that you sign up for is now a more detailed alert. So for Notify LA, we'll send out the wireless emergency alert, but then we will also make phone calls to your house phone, email, and you could add other places that you might be a part of. So your work phone, if you volunteer a lot, let's say in a local nonprofit, that contact number could be there and they will notify you. It's imperative. One of my constituents in the Getty fire received a wireless emergency alert and didn't even flip it over. They're like, oh, it's another Amber alert. She said not even 20 seconds later or less, she got the phone call, and nobody calls her home line at 1:10 in the morning. So she answered it, and she got a message from us stating she needs to evacuate now. That because of the wildfire, she was able to evacuate and help notify her block, her cul-de-sac, in the evacuation efforts. So this is why it's very important to register for these wireless alerts and give you that information. Our social media pages, which is at Ready LA and at LAFD Alerts and at Notify LA, will keep you updated with important information. Currently, we keep updating information about the COVID vaccine, COVID response efforts. If you have small businesses, a lot of the small business recovery efforts, but the social media channels have a lot of information that we share. So this is probably the signs you guys are used to seeing up on Chautauqua and Entrada. So we have these are the evacuation plans, and all our plans do reflect those with disabilities or any access and functional needs that may be needed. These are the same scopes we do for your neighborhood. So I'm going to actually go a little further out because I feel like I've made a few moments. One of the big things you could prepare prior to a disaster is doing a house hunt. We call these fun little hazard house hunts, and making sure things are secured properly. If you are like me, I have a lot of paintings and mirrors hung on my wall, and I use museum putty tape to make sure, museum putty to make sure it's secured. It's imperative to make sure that you can limit your risks inside your home. If we could start within our home and limiting the risk, it's kind of think of it as your own business. Doing a risk management factor assessment, seeing what are the risks, mitigating those factors, and then when you tug on them or check on them, you're evaluating the effort. So you have to conduct this with your water heater, your foundations. You could do this with your lines and your power. It's really, really important to do so, and also do this at your places of work. Those who are most vulnerable, it's imperative to do this for them because they won't know what to look for. Lastly, and we have a lot of people who are huge fans of this, these are some training opportunities besides Ryland. And I didn't put Ryland on this one because I wanted to talk about it separately. That actually helps in building a strong disaster community. Community Emergency Response Team, or as we know as CERT, is led by our LAFD. And many of those who did not know, actually LAFD started the national program of CERT. So we are the pioneers of emergency response teams, which is great. And it started based on the Whittier earthquake. So because of that, we have pioneered this great national movement that is all across. So kudos to LAFD for this. Stop the Bleed is a bleed control program that you can learn through LAFD, but they also have really good one-sheeters that show how to use a tourniquet. So in CERT, you're going to learn how to everything from preparing your disaster kit to setting up triage to immediate first aid psychology to also parts of how to respond. Like, so if you need to look how to help respond, they're going to give you the tips and trades. It's about a 9-week course, I think, in total. And Casey, please jump in if you like. But from start to finish, it's about 3 hours per course. And I've taken it twice for my neighborhood, once in 2009, and then I did it again in 2013, just to refresh myself. And it really brings a whole team of people together. First aid and CPR, American Red Cross has excellent trainings for your neighborhood, and it's something that this group could do together, actually. If you could get a team, I believe, of 15 or more, they could come out to you. So I highly recommend that. And then amateur radio, we were talking about the importance of being able to communicate during a disaster. And you do in the Palisades have people who are trained in amateur radio and ham radio, which is a huge a huge bonus. These classes, the majority of these classes are free and developed by LAFD. The amateur radio might have, I think they do charge for a licensing fee, but I don't know the exact price for it. But what is this important? It's important to have these trainings and backups because for us to be resilient, we have to plan. It's about planning for an event that you don't want to have. So for example, if you're planning for your wedding, you have your DJ, you have your caterer, you have the location, you have the valet park, you have all this, and you have all this coordination going, and you have all the key players ready to go for your wedding. Well, emergencies are kind of similar like that, but we're waiting for our wedding day. We know when it's going to happen. We have the date, we know the time, we know everything. And for emergencies, we don't. So it's kind of about having that enormous event, but not being prepared for it, but not wanting it to happen. Sorry. So today we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly. But we're going to go make that kit, and I'm going to show you where you can get that information. Please promise me to put sturdy shoes, not flip-flops, not house shoes, sturdy shoes and a flashlight under your bed. And for me, sometimes I even put socks, an extra pair of socks there. We're going to go and make a family plan. So if you don't have one, I'm going to put in the chat where we can start working on one and work with your family. Find another meeting place. So for us and my family, we have a local church that has a huge parking lot with no obstruction. And that's our meeting point. If the parking lot's not available, we know to meet right on that street. Check your emergency kits. So when I check my emergency kit, after it's built, I check them every daylight savings time. That's my time to remember because it's very simple. I can associate with 1 hour back, 1 hour forward. Okay, let me take 1 hour to check out my kits, my family supplies, etc. And then schedule your Ryland meeting with me. So I am your West Bureau coordinator and do your Ready Your Los Angeles neighborhood programs. We are a little different than Map Your Neighborhood because we take the idea of what we do as an all-hazard emergency plan that we do for the city, and we bring it to your block. So you having the creators of the plans helping you with your neighborhood plan itself. I'm going to stop sharing. As I switch, do you have any questions, or were there any questions on the chat that I missed?
No questions on the chat.
Okay, cool. And as I'm switching over, I'm going to talk about the importance of disasters. So as I mentioned, there are many disasters that we can face, unfortunately. Disaster planning is very, it's not time consuming, but it's something that not everybody would love to do. People are worried about the unknown. Some people just don't want to talk about it anymore. It's not a fun topic to come around in a barbecue to speak of. The reason why we want to talk about being resilient, and it's not because government does not want to help you or we're too busy for you. It's just the fact that during a time of earthquake, what we call the golden hour, we're surveying the intensity of the damages or any secondary emergencies that can happen. So for example, in an earthquake of a 6.4 or greater, and we experienced here in Northridge, we had a lot of secondary emergencies, which was large fires because of gas lines breaking. We also had water main breaks. We've had a lot of secondary issues that came from the earthquake, and what didn't help, it was the floor was still shaking at other times. So because of that, because we're assessing, or because we're now trying to bring in more resources, we're trying to build resilient communities to just mitigate some basic risks if possible. And we found, and other cities have found too, and not just Los Angeles, but like Seattle, San Francisco, and now Houston's working on it because of what happened to them this winter. that if we bring an emergency management approach of the planning and preparedness to the field, resiliency is stronger. But why? Not because you have the tools or you have the equipment or you have the generator, but it's because you're building that relationship. You're knowing who's who. And even if you don't know everybody, at least you know, for example, oh, the house next door to me is an Airbnb facility, place. They usually rent it out a lot during the weekends. That's important information because then oh, for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that home will have visitors out of state or out of country. So it would be imperative to kind of build that plan. And that's what we do with Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood. So we call it Ryland for short, and this is our website. We've completely redesigned Ryland, so your group is actually the first to see our new website. It talks about what we're doing, making an emergency plan, staying informed, and what we do. With Ryland, myself or we could lead it with you, will come out and do a disaster plan. So this is your communication plan, your skills and inventory, assessing your neighborhood and your community. If you live in a condominium, townhome, or apartment, we do this level floor by floor approach. And this is, what are we going to do? Who are the teams that are going to be built? Who's going to be where and what? Who may have a vulnerability? Who have children? Who has pets? And getting all that information into what we call a live document. This live document should be changed and updated at least once a year minimum. If we can do every 6 months, that's great, but at least once a year minimum. This is our pillars, and a little bit of it's summarizing why we're supposed to be prepared. So we have a preparedness within our home. We organize our group. We will do a drill, and this is actually my photo I took of my teammates doing their drill. We go out and do the drills. During COVID, we were not able to do that, and in post-COVID, we're working on either virtual ways to do so or safe distance ways in practicing the drills of your plan. The point of it, and it's a very it derives from emergency management, is you do not know if your plan is effective until you test it. So we want to test your plans and help you test these plans to make sure it's effective, and to make sure that if there's any changes, any additions, or something you want to add to it, is put in that time. And then the connect, the communicate, and the learn, which we've talked about the extra training. I did fail to mention that we do have access to, and this one's always, I always say this, the unfortunate of the active shooter training, and especially for the community, for the small businesses, this is something that is done for free by LAPD, and some of our emergency managers also teach this training. So we have that. And if you ever forget where we're at online, we have everything. Ready LA, our goal when we built this was to make sure it was a one-stop shop for everybody. This is if you did not have my contact information, which you all do and we'll all have, but you want to share this with your group, with we're going to show you guys some information from the Palisades Chamber, or with your friends. This is how you could sign up and get more information on Ryland and our workshops. But you guys all have my direct contact, and if not, I can share that with you, or Ingrid can share that with you. I also want to show you this page of resources. So we have our basic Ryland stuff, but we have this amazing new book. It's called our Emergency Preparedness Guide. And a lot of the things I shared today, and I want to open it. I'm going to take a little bit less on time. I'm going to close it up right now because I want to open it for discussion, because I want to hear your thoughts and I want to talk to you guys about it. But this preparedness guide summarizes a lot of our general preparedness, and how do we work with our pets or with ourselves, with those with disabilities. What happens if a tsunami happens or a power outage? So this is a supplement to or actually in conjunction with the LAFD preparedness guide, and they actually assisted us in doing this one. So as you could tell, it's very detailed. It gives you an overview. There is digital information on there. It helps you prepare for items. It has a great section for access and functional needs. And it gives you the tools to build your kit, how to get that information. And that house hunt I was telling you about, this is something fun you could do with your children. And these pages assist you on how to do these house hunts and how to do certain tasks. So we work with everyone, and I love this picture because it shows our unity. This is our friend Chin, and he's been a great asset. Cert's been a great asset, but as we've said, public safety is not by ourselves. We have to do it within a community. We have to do it together. We have to make sure that we're all in it together. So for your neighborhood, and I'm going to stop sharing in a second, but here we have some contact information. This is all part of your list. In our neighborhood of Pacific Palisades, we do have a great relationship with the LAPD's West Division with Captain Tom and your senior lead officer. Well, he's not yours for Palisades, but he's a senior lead for Robertson, which is Matt Kirk, which many of you may know. He is our liaison for Ryland also. So we partner up a lot with LAFD Chief Armando Hogan, Captain Tom, and start to really make sure you guys are resilient. And when we are working together, whether it's in community preparedness or in the actual response or recovery, we have that working relationship that we communicate very well. And that's how we're able to get our resources to you stronger. So with that, I don't want to say I'm ending my presentation because I want to continue with the further conversations that we're having. This is a great, and Ryan, I'm going to share, has shared this with me, and I'm loving it, and I'm going to let Ryan speak on it, but talk about one-stop shop. Go for it, Ryan.
Yeah, so Chris Fitz at the Pacific Palisades Community Council, PPCC, saw that we were having this workshop and just let us know that the PPCC has put together this disaster readiness resource page here on their website, where you can see they have Ryland, and we've got Jackie's name right here. And then all of these resources here on the PPCC website. So great local resource for us in our community on the PPCC site. So with that, happy to open it up to questions. I'm going to, let's see if I can stop sharing, and I will see if I can unmute everyone or ask you to unmute. Does anyone have any questions for Jackie?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Hi. So Jackie, can you talk a little bit about what the neighborhood plan would look like on a suburban single family street where some of your neighbors are weird?
The ones who don't want to talk to you or may have conspiracy theories or just give you the side eye.
Well, you know, what happens if you've got sort of a block of 20 houses and, 12 are willing to participate and 8 aren't?
No, that's actually a really great question. So we still do it. We still have it, and we still map them out. So with Ryland, we do a map, or we to know what every house is. Even though they do not want to participate in it, it's important to know what structures are available and who's there. The idea that is hilarious. Many of them don't have time. They have other priorities. Some are just fearful of talking about disasters. So you have your 8 people of your 12 who are interested. still have that meeting. I will help you. We could do this virtually right now, and soon when everything opens up, we're going to probably go back to some in-person with a lot of limitations, but you can still do it very much virtually. And we start our bases, and we collect the information of those for our aides because they're volunteering their information for us. All the information that we collect, I do not take back. It stays with you as the block captain or the host and your team. We make sure that people understand this information is not shared with anybody, and we don't use it for birthday parties or block parties. It's for emergency purposes only. In my experience, and this has probably happened more cases than none, is you start the plan. Somebody talks about it and it's already completed. So all 8 of you completed, you did your skills and inventory. Someone just mentioned it to a neighbor and they ended up saying, oh, that's so great. Why wasn't I involved? And they're like, you were invited. Yeah. I thought it was something random. They're going to end up calling you. And then you're going to have to, you redo the plan. So that's why we keep doing it. It's living. So it's weird. Once they start hearing it actually is happening and they're actually understanding this is a movement, people want to be a part of something. And that actually happened with Jenny Buckbinder. A lot of people were kind of hesitant with her, and she was able to get pretty much all her homes present in the plan in her whole area. The drill actually brings in more people, and you get closer to 100% participation because they're actually seeing people actively preparing and walking and talking and socializing in this. So even if you have a weird community and it's only 50%, we still build that plan because at least 50% people are prepared, and those people could help the other 50% at the time of disaster. So even if you don't have 100%, it's still okay. It's just chipping at it. And every neighborhood has had that same situation, and that every neighborhood has gotten more people participating after the plan has been done and revisiting it. So I think I've done a lot more follow-ups during 2020 just to see if the plan was okay while we were responding, because more people realized the importance of it who didn't think of it the first time around. So it's just seeing it. People, it sounds funny, but it's grassroots and grid. They see it. They're like, oh, this is a thing. I want to be a part of that thing and be a part of that. And I think I saw a question pop up. Largest group for a Ryland neighborhood. My largest group was actually 40 homes. We did 40 homes. We divided it into 2 sections to 20 and 20. And then we set up a small gathering site, which we call in our world incident command, where the teams of both groups could come together and speak at the same time. How many LAFD firefighters for the Palisades and the Palisades Highlands? That's a good question. I do not know. I don't know the counts of the firehouses at all. That would be a good question for Captain Kevin Johnson or Chief from Armando Hogan. He would be able to let you know. Oh, okay.
Great. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today. That was incredibly informative and useful, and a lot of good resources that we can take back. Ingrid, anything you want to add before we wrap?
No, thank you very, very much for the, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean it.
No, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's really important, and especially to this group, to understand that our world is changing. Our physical world is changing, but also ourselves, we're changing too in different ways and capacities. And for us to really be able to kind of, no pun intended, go with the flow with the change is for us to be able to prepare and be planned. And I think that's in every part of life, but more so right now in disasters. We're noticing there's a huge disaster change happening, especially with our levels. I'm going to put in the chat once I'm done speaking a really great case study about climate change and emergency preparedness that I'm going to share on the chat. I think it's going to be very valuable to see what other cities and counties are trying to do, and have a little bit more understanding what we do for the city of Los Angeles. But because we are in change, we're noticing the change, even though it's gradual, it's happening. So being prepared individually at work with Ryland, or just having a network is imperative for a resilient community. So for Palisades to be resilient, plans should be in place. And I'm more than happy to help you with creating all those plans for you.
Thanks. Can I follow up just one more sort of question at the level of Resilient Palisades, Jackie? So we, like other community organizations like the PPCC or in other areas, neighborhood councils, we have a unique membership that maybe doesn't necessarily overlap completely with, say, the PPCC. So we as Resilient Palisades have access to members of our community who are worried about the climate crisis and want to prepare. What sort of structural ways can we as an umbrella, so just to give you an idea, we have a mailing list that's growing all the time. At the moment, it's about 380 people. And people are quite engaged and know each other. So there's sort of the sense of community, which is which isn't just, I have a list of people randomly, like people would come to a meeting because they know other people. So what would a strategy of a group like ours look like? Not wanting to do anything, take over from what the PPCC might also be doing, but to reach people that they may not be reaching.
That's a great question. And yeah, I can think of other people like the SMCCA, other groups and organizations. We could send you, and I actually will work with my PIO. She's great. Her name is Jessica Kellogg. When we post items on social media, she does do us like a toolkit, and we could send that to you to send to your group. And it's just, for us, it's about force multiplying. I don't think there's there's no way that we're going to saturate groups that might be crossing each other. That's not so much the PPC, CC, or the SMCCA or BOCA. We could all work together, and since you have that commonality, we can send you that information. And when you want to send it out, feel free to send that out to reach people, and we could give contact information and just to keep sharing, because I think it's imperative to not only share the information, but also link it to the community, why it's important. And for the Palisades community, and you guys are noticing this, and this is why I am assuming why the organization was formed, because we're seeing a lot of changes into our neighborhood. And we're seeing a lot of changes of everything from going green to excess wildfires. I don't think I've seen so many fires in the Palisades neighborhood than I have in the last 2 years, to be honest. Yeah, I think if anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've had the most in the last 2 years, right? Of like brush fires and wildfires. So with these changes, people are adapting and realizing the importance. And so if you could be that force multiplier to add to it, we could give you I can send you the information, or Jessica sends you the information, and just share it. And if it's repeated, fine, it's perfect. It's okay. Because I think everybody's goal and your goal too, Ingrid, is the same as just the resiliency of the neighborhood.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you so much, Jackie, for this really, really informative talk, and for bringing us together, as I say, as a community. And I want to encourage anyone on this call who's interested in doing some outreach as Resilient Palisades, through Resilient Palisades, to send me an email, and we can, as I said, everything we do is organically based on whoever steps forward to volunteer to do stuff. So we need you to step forward and say, I'd like to help with this, and then it will happen. So I hope to hear from some of you on this call about that. And there's something about working with people in the community who you already know to get these things off the ground that makes it more fun and more engaging and just more easy to do. So I just want to thank you again, Jackie, and it's great to know you, to have to know who you are, to have spoken with you, and when we have questions, to have someone who we know that we can reach out to. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And thank you for the invite. It was great to meet a lot of people and seeing some familiar faces. So I appreciate the efforts, and thank you for supporting each other in our communities. I appreciate it.
Thank you.